You are now listening to the Going North podcast with your host, author and speaker, Dom Brightman. And every Monday and Thursday, you're going to hear the voice of a different author share their stories, expertise, and their struggles that they had to overcome in life to leave you inspired to get more out of your life. Be sure to not only listen to this episode, but share with others, connect with the authors, and always advance others to advance yourself. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, we're bringing you some fabulous humans from across the globe. Today is another one of those crappy to happy days with the crappy to happy crew, baby. Hashtag C2H. Because they got another fabulous author, or should I say one of my fabulous tag team partners, sits out to him in the book. We got a lovely lady right here. This fabulous author, a mama to 3 grown kids, y'all, 3 of them, all of them grown, past the tree stage. And she also survived a Category 5 high conflict divorce. And now, through it all, she's dedicated to living life joyfully. And she inspires women to look and feel fabulous through mindful self-care. And she does so much more. So let's give it up for the lovely LB herself, Miss Lorilyn Bridges. How you doing today, ma'am?
Thanks, Dom.
My pleasure indeed. My pleasure indeed. This is the part where I usually ask you to fill in any cavities I may have missed because intros aren't allowed to be 5 days long, but that intro is probably, I'd say, about a good day and a half long. So might as well fill in some cavities and let's get up to 5 days. Tell us more about the lovely Lorilyn herself. Tell us all about you.
You did a great job. Yeah, so I'm remarried now. I'm a retired teacher, animal lover, gardener. That's about it. Writer. You hit all the marks.
There we go. Did I hit all the Lukes too? Maybe the
Yeah,
Johns?
yeah. Yeah. And recently got into Instagram, and I'm doing some, I guess you call it that influencer niche. And I'm having a really great time. It's, for me, it's a real positive platform. I really like it. So I've been busy with that too.
There you go. I guess it's kind of like a mix between Pinterest and Twitter in a way.
I think you're right. I really do. It's different, definitely different than Facebook. And I enjoy it. I think that it's focus driven. And I like that. I like things to have a purpose. If I'm going to go out there and talk and put things out there, I think because I'm just a kind of a natural born teacher, I like having a platform that has some purpose to it. Somebody's going to gain something from looking at your posts. So I'm actually here. I'll put a plug in. My my code thing or whatever it's called is just.Lorilyn. So just Lorilyn.
There you go. It's just you, right?
Yeah, just me. Just Lorilyn.
Just Lorilyn, no Laurelins, no Barrel Eyes, no
Middle
Laurens.
name, nothing. Just Lorilyn.
Okay. All righty. That's good. Follow her on IG, folks. Slide into her DMs to buy some copies of the book. Buy all the copies of the books. And you mentioned that you're a retired teacher. My goodness. Well, thanks for your service, because that's one heck of a job. So which grades were these that you taught?
Actually, my degree's in chemistry, and I had originally set out to go to med school and be a doctor until I worked in an emergency room, and I realized that there's sick people, and I tended to freak out when there was sick people. I thought I was just going to be a pediatrician and like bounce babies on my knee all day. So I did this jaunt at an emergency room my junior year in college as a chemistry pre-med major. And all of a sudden I was like freaked out by sick people. Like they'd come in and I'd be like in a panic. And I was like, oh, this is not going to work. And I was like, what am I going to do now with a degree in chemistry? So still wanted to be around kids. If I wasn't going to be a pediatrician, I decided to go into education. So I ended up getting my teaching certificate on top of the chemistry degree, and I can teach grades, I think it was 6 through 12, according to my certification. But I did a lot in middle school and high school science. And that was quite an experience. I really enjoyed it. I loved it.
There you go. So how many explosions happened?
Nothing.
Oh,
No explosion. No bad stories. So that's good. No bad stories.
on it. I was hoping somebody would have had like hair that looked like a chef had after they had a bad experiment or something.
Right? Yeah, I know. I kind of had this Einstein little cartoon character I would draw on all my stuff, with his hair all which way. And the kids all liked it. So, yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. But writing has definitely been a side passion for me. And I really enjoy it.
There you go. And now you're teaching ladies to find their joy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it did. So what helped you to find your joy? Because a category 5 divorce, like to be honest, I've never heard of a level that high of divorce until I came across your name. So mind filling some of us in on what that it is and what it really involved, entailed?
Dom, it's like nothing you could ever imagine. Honest to God, it's really funny. There's this Netflix special called Dirty John. Have you ever seen it?
It sounds familiar. I've seen the movie called Don John, which is a little similar, I hear.
Oh, okay. It's about a guy who like gaslights and gets in relationships and is like narcissistic and stuff. So I'd heard a lot about it. And then believe it or not, last night, the Betty Broderick story came on. And it's the second season of this Dirty John. And I watched the first 3 episodes. And obviously she ends up unfortunately killing her ex-husband and his new wife. But if you draw back from that and look at the circumstances of these two people, this husband and this wife that went through this divorce, and how could it end up with somebody feeling so messed up in the system that they felt the only recourse would have been to kill people? I mean, that's intense, right? Like, that's intense. But if you watch it, there are, and because I had a very intense category 5 divorce, and I've been involved with women trying to be now in a supportive role, helping them through it, you don't realize how devastating something like that can be until you've experienced it. You can't explain it to anybody because people can't believe the stuff that goes down in a high conflict divorce. Like, until you get into it, you can't believe this stuff can happen. Like, you can't believe, and it's not always that the ex-husband, because I've heard many stories where the ex-wife is the, I hate to say it, but monster, like the covert narcissist in this dynamic. And what they do is they literally, we have a broken family court system, and they are so good at manipulating the family court system because it's already broken. They go in and they know just what to do to make it work for them. It's like a platform, and they almost follow predictable patterns. Like these, be it an ex-wife or an ex-husband who's doing this manipulation of the family court system, they almost do the exact same thing. They start manipulating restraining orders and judges, and they lie under oath. And when they lie under oath, the other party tends to respond to that and react like he's lying or she's lying. And it's like they just remain really calm because they're kind of doing all of their manipulating behind a curtain. It's the hardest thing to explain. It's a real mind game. It's a real like strategic, and most of us aren't equipped for dealing with this. We kind of think the court system's just and fair. And you get into it in this horrible like platform. And I don't know, I was watching the episode of the Betty Broderick story last night, and they were in a family court situation, and They did, the ex-husband did something to manipulate it where she wasn't actually able to be there to represent herself. And they just decided all these things without her even present. And the judge was in on it, they're like patting each other on the back, kind of an old boys club, like, oh yeah, like, okay, we'll grant you the divorce, we'll grant it. And it's just like, how can this stuff go down in today's day and age? Like, this all happened to her back in the 80s, I think, and 90s. And she felt really emotionally abused and battered emotionally. And she felt like she had no recourse and no ground to stand on. And of course, she took matters into her own hands, which was horrible. But the helplessness that women feel in these situations, it's probably only 5 or 10% of all divorces are at that level of family court manipulation. And it's really tough. So, as somebody who lived through that, I mean, my ex sued me over 10 years after the divorce was final. Divorce took 3 months. I was just like, I'll sign whatever you want. Let's just get it over with, because I knew he was very diabolical in his thinking, his plotting all the time. So I didn't want to fight him. I didn't want to go to trial. I was just like, I'll sign whatever you want. Let's go. And as soon as we did, he went 10 years suing me after the divorce. So it's, you couldn't even make sense of it. It's just so awful. Yeah. So that's my take on that. Don't get me started. It was a tough 10 years. And the only reason why it got better is because my youngest child turned 21. And when in New York State, when your child's 21, there's like you really can't have much legal recourse anymore against the other parent. So I kind of outgrew the ability of him to manipulate me through the courts, which was a godsend.
Oh, okay.
In a nutshell.
So there you go. Just basically outlast until the kids grow up, huh?
I really feel bad for these people who are dealing with a high conflict divorce with somebody who's manipulating the family court system, because if they've got young kids, I don't know how you endure it. It truly is, it's a tough, you have to be really strong. You really have to be strong emotionally, because unfortunately things happen. And that Betty Broderick, unfortunately how she killed her ex and stuff, there's still stuff like that going on. Things end pretty badly sometimes in these really high conflict situations.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like usually with divorce, you think it's like, yeah, we hate each other. Yeah, we do. Maybe not enough to kill somebody, and then it's like, oh crap, you really do want to kill somebody. Like, oh darn, like it's kind of a little on the intense side of the game. It's like, darn, it's like really somehow finding a way to prevent that. So from living through that experience, do you believe that there's any way for those who may be looking to get in relationships, heck, even maybe even marriage nowadays, to really do some groundwork ahead of time to really, in a way, prepare in case that may happen from your experience?
I think, really, I believe that most divorces are okay. I mean, no divorce is great, right? But the majority of divorces are quote unquote normal. You don't want to be married anymore. You part ways and you do your best to co-parent if there's children involved and so forth. But if you are dealing with somebody who is on the spectrum of mental illness, like a covert narcissist or a narcissistic personality, which is what results in these high conflict divorces, you're not dealing with somebody normal. And how can I put it? Like, the gloves come off and it's a whole different ball game. So I guess I guess my advice would be careful who you marry. But, my ex didn't show these issues until we were into the marriage. They tend, if you're dealing with a covert narcissist or somebody who's mentally ill, or has a personality disorder like that, they do a really good job masking it. So I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say or what advice to give, because if you end up with somebody, and so many women, because I've worked in this area, like I said, doing a lot of writing on divorcedmoms.com and supporting women. A lot of divorced women call me who are going through similar situations and ask me for advice. And once you're in it, if you're in it with somebody who's not rational and not well, all you can really do is endure it. It's true. It's like, you can't change it. You're not going to make that person well. You're not going to make that person rational. And all you can really do is ride it out. Really ride it out until the court system can no longer be their platform. And like in my case, what ran out was the age of my kids, and that saved me from any further prosecution. So if you're dealing with somebody who's just not well, you just really have to endure it. There's no other way to get around it. There's no easy fix. I mean, I guess you could get a good lawyer, but even good lawyers have a hard time going up against these personalities because they're sneaky. You know, they don't follow the rules. Like I said, you know, they lie under oath. They spin the truth. They're charismatic to the judges, and it's like this whole persona. It's not uncommon. You know, it's an unfortunate aspect of dealing with people.
Yeah, because we need people, and sometimes we feel like we don't need people. So with a new term, covert narcissist, my goodness. So from your experience, any signs for those who may be wondering if they may be with a covert narcissist, any signs to look for in particular from your experience?
Yeah, I think there are red flags ahead of time. But the one thing that they say about a narcissist is they'll usually match up with an empath. Have you ever heard of that term?
Nope.
An empath is somebody who's, yeah, it's a really, it was new to me too. An empath is somebody who's extremely sensitive, extremely attuned to other people's needs, very people pleasing, with a very big desire to take care of others. So they're called empaths because their empathy is very high. And
Oh,
they
empaths. Okay,
match
now, yep.
with,
Okay, I get you now.
yeah,
It was the
empaths. Yeah.
pronunciation that threw me
So
off.
sorry.
It's
So
all
they
good.
match. People say I have a Minnesotan accent and destroy words. So, but they match really well with a covert narcissist. And it's kind of like a match made in hell, because these two personalities are drawn together, right? And it's like very, very toxic. So, you know, I guess you got to be careful. And then are there signs? Yeah, there's definitely signs. And it tends to, I mean, I was married for 3 years before the divorce. A lot of the signs tend to show up years, you know, years down the line. But you know, it's a tough call. I guess it's a tough call. I don't know, but yeah, so my children were my life, right? Because the marriage was unhealthy from day one. He could not be invested in a relationship. He was just, you know, always about taking care of his needs and everything, and everybody was there to fulfill his needs, his desires. So my kids, my three children, were really, I was a single parent to them. He was either physically absent or emotionally absent. And so my three children became my whole world. And my story in the book is about my oldest child, and you know, just about how my identity was always about you know, being the best little girl I could be. When I was growing up, I was always about being the best little girl, following the rules, being the best wife, the best homemaker, the best mom. And, that gets, that kind of sets you up sometimes for problems, because you're always putting out, you're looking outside yourself and taking care of others, taking care of my husband, taking care of the house, taking care of the kids. And so I think a lot of us empaths, is that how you pronounce it?
Well, tomato,
Empath?
tomato, as they say.
How do you,
I prefer empath, but
I think
empaths works for
that
you. It's all good.
empath, I like that. We can get ourselves in trouble. It's kind of like codependency too, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yes, indeed. Actually, I had
Yeah.
quite a few empath experts on this show. Stephanie Redfeather, she actually had a book called The Evolutionary Empath, and pretty darn interesting, thorough book, too. So definitely, for those listeners, might want to listen to that episode after listening to the lovely Lorilyn with her wonderful jewels of knowledge, especially since apparently I hear that you were a combination of Martha Stewart and Mrs. Brady from the Brady Bunch on steroids.
It's true. Like I said, it's I was just, like that ever ready bunny, or I don't know if I have the right battery name there, but yeah, it's like, just constantly trying to create this perfect environment for, entertaining, decorating, making my own wrapping paper, making gingerbread houses with the kids. Each kid had their own niche with me. Like, I was Boy Scout mom and Girl Scout mom. And there wasn't one thing I missed except, in my story, the fact that my child was transgender and I never knew it. So, I was so busy like checking all the boxes and making sure I was meeting my children's emotional needs and their physical needs and their spiritual needs and all of this stuff. And then, down the line, I find out I missed something pretty big along the way. So that was a real wake up call too.
Wow. Yeah, that is pretty big. Like, that's pretty darn huge. It's almost elephant size, maybe 2 elephants.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It really is.
Oh my
Really is.
goodness. Like, my goodness. So, was it like a lack of like self-awareness? Was it trying to dot every I that one T got out of the word? Like, what?
That's
Okay.
great. That's great. I said to Teddy, how'd I miss this? How did I miss this? And she said, I didn't want you to know. And I was like, wow, you did a good job, And yeah, because I knew everything. I knew everything about my kids. I knew details that most mothers don't know. My kids have always been very open with me about everything. And I just think that this was too big. This was something that I think that my child, Teddy's got a very gifted IQ, right? So Teddy's a really smart kid and an adult now, and just a very intuitive, gifted person as well. So I think she was smart enough at a young age, believe it or not, realize that back in, she was born in 88. The way she felt inside wasn't cohesive or in keeping with physically what she was presenting as, right? So I think when she realized something was different and off, I think she knew enough to assess her environment and say, what I'm feeling, I don't see anybody else feeling or talking about or anything. So I'm just going to kind of keep this quiet. I think she knew enough at a very young age that what she was experiencing wasn't talked about or expressed by anybody around her. So she just kind of kept it very quiet. And then only recently, when she started realizing that this was a thing and she wasn't the only person in the world who felt this way, then she was able to address it. But
Yeah.
that's pretty intuitive for a kid to realize that what they're feeling isn't being recognized or discussed or even commented on around her. So maybe she should just kind of keep a lid on it for a while. I don't know. It's weird.
Oh yeah, probably was super observant too, and that's the thing about kids. They, in addition to having no filters at their youngest, they're also very intuitive, and they can actually be extra spiritual in a way, depending on the situation too. Heck, even some folks equate it to them having imaginary friends as them actually having actual spiritual friends. It's like, hey, it may be imaginary to us as adults, but like to them, it could be really for real, and it could be like someone really out there. So yeah, definitely right about that.
Well, because kids are like just pure vessels. They're just
Mhm.
like open, just pure open thought. And they are intuitive to like what's around them. And it was pretty intuitive to realize that what she was feeling didn't seem like it was going to be able to be brought out until society and everything, caught up. So,
Well, sounds like someone's been through a lot and is now at a point where they can semi coast a bit. No one can really coast in life at all, to be honest. So, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when it comes to your expertise? Because it sounds like you have a lot of resilience under your belt. You have experience with dealing with a high level divorce. Like, this is like a tropical storm or a hurricane level of divorce never even heard about. So, is there a question that you wish we asked more often that you don't get asked enough?
I have had women who I talk to who are going through really stressful times ask, how did you do it? How did you do it? You seem so happy now. And I and I know this sounds really trite, but I think I had faith. I just had faith that it was going to be okay. And I do believe everything happens for a reason. I do. And I could remember going into the courtroom. I mean, because my ex sued me like 16 times, and each time was so ridiculous. And there were many times they were made up on complete lies, like complete lies. And you still had to go through the process of having, I mean, so like during all of that, I just remember saying, like, can I get that intervention, like that divine intervention early? Because each court case would take like a year. Seriously, at least 9 months. By the time first, then you come back and and it's like a really long ordeal. And I remember thinking, like, can't like the judge like suddenly get it, like after like maybe the 2 or 3 courtroom sessions, but inevitably it would go on and on and on. And I kept like hoping and wish, because if you play dirty, if someone's playing dirty and you play dirty, maybe you could like, I remember one of my lawyers saying, well, we can really speed this up if you put your kids on the stand, because if you put your kids on the stand, then they'll testify and it'll come out that what he's saying is complete lies. But I wouldn't do it. And he knew that. He knew I would never put my kid on a stand. So he almost had like, like la-di-da, I could say whatever I want because she's never going to put our kids on the stand. I know that. That's how much he knew. So I had to make a decision early on. Like, am I going to play dirty? Am I going to lower my standards and like pull my kids in there to, blow this out of the water? No, I'm not. So it's almost like you got to wait it out. You just got to wait it out. And like I've said to people, how did I survive it? Why am I happy now? Because I never really lowered my moral code. So even though it took a lot out of me, and it beat me up emotionally, and it devastated me on so many, I mean, there were so many devastating moments. In the end, I walked away with my head held high. And that's what got me through, is knowing that I wasn't going to stoop. I wasn't going to stoop to playing dirty, even if it might have ended the so-called pain and agony of all of that. I wasn't going to do it. So I had that. And, it just by the grace of God, you just have faith, and you just know it's all happening for a reason. And I guess you hope karma comes through at some case, but I don't even, I don't know about you, Don, but I don't really think like karma is all about kicking the person in the ass, excuse my French, who did you wrong. Like some people are like, he's going to get his, Is that such a good thing? I don't think so. I mean, as long as you're okay.
Oh, yeah. And you're definitely right about that. Funny enough, James Redfield and I, we actually talked about this a few months ago. Like, hey, karma works for your good. Like they say, karma's a bitch, but she's also a queen too. Good karma does exist.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's like I've had people like, oh, he's going to get his, he can't do that to you and your kids and just come out unscathed. Don't worry, karma's, going to take care. I don't even care about that. I mean, so what? I mean, so bad shit's going to happen to him because he, was so horrible to his own children and ex-wife. I don't count on that. I don't know. I mean, I just really care that my kids and I are okay. I don't care what happens to him at this point. I really don't. I'm just grateful we're okay, that we got through it. And Teddy, went through not only his parents divorcing in a horrible situation and having a horrible relationship with her father all her life, and it being a source of pain and stuff. But she navigated this transitioning, which is a lot to go through, with the weight of having had, a non-existent father, basically. And I give her so much credit for like not even letting that pull her down. But she doesn't even focus on that. She just focuses on the support of her friends and her family. Like, we're her family. I'm her family, and her sister and her brother, and my family is her family. So I give my kids credit too, that they don't pound their chest about having a horrible dad. Once in a while they do. Once in a while they pound their chest about it. But I'm really proud of them that they haven't used that negative energy and emotional cruelty to like weigh them down, and they haven't really focused on it. They've kind of focused their life towards positive and towards people who love them and care for them, and that's important, to really focus on those people who give you strength and positivity.
Oh, yeah. Yes, indeed. Definitely need those folks. Hell, did you become friends with the judge during that whole ordeal of 16 lawsuits consecutively?
Honest to God, I was through the metal detectors so often. When you go into court, you got to put everything, it's like an airport. The guys knew me. They'd be like, hi, how you doing? And like, good, how you doing today? And like the one judge is, I don't know, the police officer that's in their room. I don't know what you call it.
Oh, the bailiff?
But she like literally knew me on a first name basis. She's like, hey, what is it called?
Oh, bailiff?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. I knew the court's bailiff, like, on a first-name basis. She'd be like, hey, how you doing, Lorilyn? I was like, good, how you doing? I was there so much, it was ridiculous. It was it was such a manipulation. I mean, like, what a waste of the court's time and money and resources, that the stuff he was bringing up. And he would call the police all the time. He called the police on my 85-year-old mother on Mother's Day. My mother went out. He was there picking up our daughter. My mother went out with her cane to talk to him because she was so upset that he kept suing me. So she went out because my parents were like parents to him, because we were married, young. We were married 23 years. So he had literally grown up with my parents being basically his mom and dad, because we were very close with my family. So my mom finally went out to like have a talk with him and say like, back off, enough is enough. And she walked out with her cane, and he was in his car, and he dialed 911 and said, somebody's coming towards me with a weapon, and I need police. I need help. So police showed up on my front lawn as my mom's trying to talk to him outside my house. It was like on Mother's Day of all things. Like, how do you do this? It was so bizarre. It was so bizarre. It just never ceased to amaze me. He was like, I didn't feel safe. I was like, oh yeah. I think my 85-year-old mother's going to do anything with her cane. I was like, could you believe that? And this guy is like staring it out, right? He's like a weightlifter and stuff. And there's a decrepit old mom trying to talk to him, and he's calling the police for backup. Oh my God, it was terrible. You almost have to laugh at it.
Well, now we know what he was getting with that Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
man.
know. Could you imagine?
My goodness. Well, all righty, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is, if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but this time with all of your amassed knowledge, experience, and wisdom, what advice would you give to yourself?
Have faith. Just have faith. It's all going to work out.
Yeah. And not just from 9 to 5 either, right?
Yeah.
For those who want to keep up with the lovely Lorilyn herself, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you?
Probably my Instagram, which is at just Lorilyn, with just .Lorilyn.
All right, there you have it, folks. Head over to the IG page.
I'm really excited about the book coming out.
Yeah, with the big old X, baby. That's right. It's got to be extra fabulous. It's going to be an invasion of happiness.
It really is. I think this is what the world needs right now, is this book, because it's truly about, resiliency and things working out and expectations. A lot of times things don't work out the way we would expect them to or want them to, and it's pivot. You just got to pivot and plan B, and that's what we're doing now with this whole COVID thing. It's all about resiliency and pivoting and, finding the joy in what remains given the situation. Like my whole life blew up, right? Like when my husband asked for that divorce, my whole life blew up. And subsequently, the whole court battle after that just seemed endless. Everything was just so out of, just decimated. And then you just have to pivot. You just have to pick up the pieces, the ashes. You just pick up the ashes and rebuild. You just rise from it. And it's okay to be devastated and weak and destroyed, because I have been devastated and weak and destroyed. That's okay. It's pulling it up after that. And, I've always felt like, don't be afraid of that time when you have to disintegrate, because there's times when we all disintegrate. but then we put ourselves back together somehow, and we are stronger from it. And, there's that Japanese thing with the bowl that breaks or the whatever breaks and they fill it with gold and make it stronger, right?
Yep.
And I believe wholeheartedly in that. Like, don't be afraid to break. Don't be afraid to break. We're all going to break. We're all going to be decimated from time to time and just shattered. And that's okay, because inevitably we can pull ourselves back. We can definitely get, back to whole. And we're different. We're probably put together differently. We're put back together differently, and that's okay. But, I try to tell my kids that when my kids start dating and they fall in love, the one thing I say to them is, if this relationship ended tomorrow, would you be okay? And this is my thing. You wouldn't be okay, right? You'd be heartbroken and decimated. And what I try to say to them is, nothing lasts forever. Even if you're in love with somebody, that may not last forever. If, with having a parent, if you have a good relationship, that nothing lasts forever. But does the strength you gained when you were in that relationship, can that strength carry you? And did it add to you in some point in your being, where if that person exited your life for whatever reason, death, illness, emotional, cognitive, if they left, kind of like you were saying, your dad left because of Alzheimer's, right? Dementia.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to still be able to put yourself back together without that person or that energy or being there. I don't know. I'm having a hard time explaining it, but take the good and the strength of what that relationship gave you, and know you'll be able to go on. And if somehow I've tried to explain that to my kids, just know that things change. Things change, I guess, was my big point. And even if you're madly in love with this person in this relationship, it could change. And then what? You got to know that, okay, you might fall apart, but you've got to be able to pull yourself back up and make yourself, whole again.
Yeah. That's right. I knew that we were all Kit Kat bars. You're all going to break. That's right.
We are going to break. We're all going to continue to break. I mean, you and I here right now, we're going to have episodes in our life where we're going to continue to break, and we're just going to have to, I think I get a little better at it each time. I do. I think I get a little better at putting everything back together. Who knows?
Don't worry. You know.
Yeah. You do know. Yeah. I mean, and that's okay too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, all righty. Sounds fabulous indeed. Sounds fabulous indeed. So, any other parting words before we close it out, Lorilyn?
No. I'm really happy to be part of this book that is based in positivity and hope and everyone's journeys, just to show people that, we all come from challenges. We've all faced different life challenges and setbacks and things we think, like I say, that are going to, be incomprehensible to bounce back from. Inevitably, we do, because as people, we're just resilient. People are basic survivors, and don't be afraid of the dark and the tough times, because inevitably there's going to be light.
How's it going, my friend? I'm glad you made it to the end. That shows that you really enjoyed what you heard and you are an uncommon finisher. Thanks for giving this show a listen. If you really want to help out the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone that you care about or someone that needs to hear this message, because we want to spread this podcast around like butter on bread, if that's your type of thing. And if it's not your type of thing, still spread it around anyway, because good stuff needs to be shared with good people like yourself.